wherever or whenever. It's Big Victories.
You could bet it all on me. Anything that I do it B-I-G. Shot callers, so they call on me. If my dogs don't eat, then they fall on me. It's the ice on the wrist for me. I'm living life like it's meant to be. Lived everyday shit, everything big. Big crib, big bands, nigga, it's a big victory.
Good afternoon. Once again, we are back with the Big Victory podcast.
Or good evening or good morning. You don't know where people are listening, right? It's somewhere.
I break news, man. I don't care about the time the news break. I break news, man. But good afternoon, morning. Like Jermaine said, he's always right. The voice, Jermaine. Today's show is going to be epic, man. I have two of the funniest, professional, well-known, well-loved individual join us in the podcast today, Jeremy. Once again, our co-host is Jeremy St. Louis. So hello.
Happy to be along. Yes, you sent me some information on our two guests, and I'm very excited to have this conversation. I want to know. I want to know a lot of things here. So,
and our other co-host, which is always in LA, Mr. Mav, the Renegade. What you doing today, Mav?
Listen, today I would love to say I was enjoying the weather, but I can't. I think as the song goes, it never rains in Southern California. Well, today it's raining. So, not enjoying the weather. So, I'm just trying to, I'm glad I got the podcast to keep my spirits up because the weather's definitely not doing it.
Great. Well, ladies always first, so I'm going to take the honor of just introducing
absolutely
this beautiful, intelligent, hardworking. See, my English is not that long, so I don't have too many words, so I'm going to get straight to the point. She's somebody I admire. Did a lot of work with her, but still doing a lot of work with her, Miss Carol Boyd. How are you doing today, Miss Boyd?
Woo! Tell you what, we're going to bring some energy today. All the way from the farm, so the weather's good, and, hey, I'm loving life. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
And last but not least, this gentleman, I tell you, he was one of the first person when I met some years back, man. And young guy, man, was doing so much, was ready in a professional field, career at the age of 20-something, I think it was. And I have to introduce him by Mr. Germain. I don't have the voice. Germain, BB.
Hey guys, how are you guys? Maybe you looking background about myself right now? Just say,
we're going to get to it, Mr. BB, but I know you got a whole list of yourself. Let's start off. Matter of fact, let's start with Mr. BB. Mr. BB. Of course, Jeremy is the voice of the talk show. Jeremy, say hello so they can hear your voice.
Hello.
But all seriousness, Mr. Jermaine, the time I think we met, man, you impressed me so much and some of the things you have accomplished already, man. Tell the people who you really are and what have you been doing, and we'll get to the conversation. Give them a taste of who's Jermaine BB.
Oh yeah, sure. I guess when we met, I was 27. I became the president for the North Chamber of Commerce at the time. Was doing some nonprofit work. It was a great opportunity to work with the community of Miami and throughout that whole area, and helped a lot of businesses, helped a lot of entrepreneurs come up. Since then, I had left, did a couple of venture capital work, and learned how to raise some money, and then eventually came on working as chief operating officer for Telecommunications, which is a small minority-owned telecommunications company that's we're now here in Fort Lauderdale. We just started out there in the Tallahassee, Gadsden County areas, doing work, and then still currently doing that. Right now, I also launched the company. Actually, last COVID.
Can you get close to the mic because you fade out a little bit?
When did COVID hit? 2020. So 2020, I launched a company called Own Space, and so I've always been kind of very passionate about technology and architecture a bit. And so Own Space, what we do is we build modular structures and containers and pods to build event space, offices, and business.
Well, there's lots of that you can do, certainly in South Florida. I mean, there's lots of there's certainly demand for that type of thing, especially with all the growth that's been occurring.
Yeah. So it's been really exciting. Mostly we've been working with developers and new projects they have outlaid, and so essentially the last project we just did was in St. Petersburg in the Edge District. and we built a whole like marketplace out there next to a food hall, and basically what essentially was a big empty parking lot. That area is kind of up and coming. Like the Edge District in St. Petersburg near Tampa is kind of like a little bit. I don't know if you guys have been in Wynwood, so you guys have been in Miami, but it's like a very artsy, community-driven area. And so we put in this like really great like container marketplace with like bar and like art spaces and retail spaces. And we can get. And then the developer who was slated to sell that land like 5 years from now ended up got so much traction from it that they ended up selling that lot through our activity, and now we're going to see.
The good thing about the Big Victory podcast week, it's funny how every majority of business people happen to know each other. I had the privilege of actually connecting these two together, Miss Kara, Miss Boyd, and Germain. And Jermaine is kind of holding back on some of the things that he does, but we're going to get it out of him before the show's over. You know what I mean? Ms. Kara, can you explain to you how you and Jermaine actually know each other?
Oh, because I have a figures phone.
Yeah, say that again.
I have a figures phone, a F3. I love supporting other Black-owned, minority-owned businesses, and especially in the telecommunications space. And I thought it was really important. I mean, the packaging was great. I mean, it was, just really cool. So I was glad to have that early on.
Good. Now, getting back to Jermaine. Now, what is figures?
Oh, Figures is
like it's a small thing?
You're like, oh.
No, I wouldn't say we're a small thing.
No.
I guess you could say we're probably the nation's largest Black-owned telecarrier.
Say that again.
The nation's largest Black-owned telecommunications carrier. And so we're different in two ways. One, again, we're fully minority owned. And two, like we are a carrier, but we also manufacture our own devices. So like most carriers don't do their own devices. They'll have like Verizon, stuff like Samsung and Apple, all that stuff. We actually make our own product. The game has been a little different since COVID hit because, man, supply chains have been absolutely insane. But I'm glad we're holding everything right now because, like, we're gearing up to launch our new super products now that prices aren't, like, absolute bananas right now. So, but yeah, we really kind of came into so we started off in, like, rural areas where, like, a lot of people don't know, a lot of the, like, the big guys and Kara will probably tell you this, like, man, if you're in certain areas of the United States, as much as you are in the United States, like, a lot of the big guys, they don't even care, man. Like, you go to places and, they're not even 4G. They're on, dial-up.
AOL.
Yeah. I mean, you really go across the spectrum. So, believe it or not, the most amazing thing we've kind of seen, I think Trump had signed into office was the whole package for bringing broadband to these rural areas, because this is the first time in American history where you've seen this level of money. I think it's over $50+ billion being allocated to suburban and rural areas to actually try to bring them to par. While everybody else is about to go get on flying cars, it's like they're putting on horseback. And you can't have that in a country of our caliber.
Kel, I'd like for you to charm in that too as well, because you dealing with that right now. What Jermaine is referring to, as far as the internet and phone service, because I was recently in Virginia and I I had a taste of it.
Yeah, it's, rural America oftentimes gets left out. And one of the initiatives that we've been weighing on with the FCC is increasing the number of poles, utility poles in rural America, so that people can get better access to broadband. And it's just like Jermaine said, usually the priority goes to the larger population areas. And even here in Southside Virginia, I had to really fight to get fiber here. So that I could have a stable internet connection and do interviews like this. But, there was more priority and emphasis putting it in over at the lake. Victor's been there. And, of course, we know who lives on the lake. And we know that population is greater than someone like me on a 280-acre farm or a 1,000-acre farm. They're not really.
Go back to that again. Most people in Florida right now fighting for half an acre. Tell them how many acres you have.
In total, we have about 1,500 acres.
Wow.
So, I'm a farmer.
Love it. Hey, I'm from rural Canada, so I mean, I know all about farming and the landscape and everything like that. So I'm very familiar with it. That's one of the reasons why I was looking forward to having this conversation, because I'm very familiar with the farming community. Certainly, the Canadian farming community. I don't imagine that it's a lot different. So,
Yeah.
Jermaine, go ahead.
And there, which is kind of why the federal dollars coming down is really, really important, because like right now we're in the middle of doing a project in like Louisiana and Mississippi, and the real truth of it is that most of those areas can't get past like, these feasibility studies. They're going to come in, do a feasibility study, and be like, "Yo, there's no way putting fiber in the ground over here is going to be remotely profitable." Like, you know what I mean? But there are still people living there, and there's actually providing a very critical service. You got to eat, right? So, you know, so I'm very happy to hear like, hey man, like, you know, there's money out there now, and like these areas are able to start getting broadband, and fiber in the ground, and you know, I'm hoping with the proliferation of more technology that we're, you know, we can
aren't we almost to the point though now where, I mean, this type of technology should be, you know, kind of like running water. You know what I mean? Like you should.
That's, okay. So now, yeah. Yes and no. Yes is that it is now pretty much almost universally accepted that having internet is a public service utility. Like you probably pretty much need to have it as much as you have electricity and water and sewage, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean now the no part comes in, fiber wire and what it's going to take to get it over to you still costs what it costs. Right, all right. So, like some area, like I'll give you an example of Louisiana. A lot of places in Louisiana, it may not even be worth it to go put it in, because you have levees that break and have constant flooding. So I can run up over there and go drop $50 million+ in your community, get you guys all linked up. In the same year, you have a massive storm come through and wipe it all away. And there's no insurance that's going to cover that. It's just gone.
Good deed, huh?
Real challenges that happen in some of these places that, man, you know, as powerful as we think we are, Mother Nature is still what it is. It's still it's God.
Yeah. Carol, you know, this, and on the Big Victory podcast, it's a flowing conversation. You are free to jump in, but I am coming to you right now. You are such an interesting person. I would, for real, when you get to know this lady, it's like she keep me amazed. Listen, I'm gonna go 24 hours. She probably the only person that can go me.
Yeah.
So, Kara, I want you to tell this little guy named Mav, the renegade, who hasn't been in the country yet, what is it like to be a farmer? And what's some of your experiences?
You know, I've got horses here, I've got goats and chickens and cows. And I actually even have a cell phone tower on this 280-acre farm.
Wow.
And you wouldn't believe it, I still wasn't getting reception. So, you know, I have lots that I could weigh in on that. You know, but it was crazy. It was like we bought this 280-acre farm, and there was this 1-acre tract cut out in the middle of it for the cell phone tower. And so it delayed our purchase about 3 months because the seller wasn't honest about that contract, that agreement. And so come to find out, he had been compensated what we thought was going to be like a 5-year renewable lease, turned into a 20-year. And by the time it was all said and done, he had leased this acre of land in the middle of his farm for 100 years.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And gets better because he got bought out of that lease agreement. So he collected all the funds
and left y'all
years on this property, on this farm that I bought. And, you know, they'll always have access to it, you know. So that's one of the things, you know, you think about land, you think about, you know, all the things that you can do with it, leave it for the next generation, you know, but there's a lot of responsibilities, and especially when it comes to environmental protection, you know, farmers and climate change and, you know, what are we doing? Are we making things better or worse? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, farming is very complex if you're doing it for a profit. And then, you know, trying to be good stewards of the land and making sure that, you know, I tell people the only way to know what you're eating is if you raised it yourself or you know who did. And so that's one of the good things I can say. Probably the best perk about farming is if you're growing and raising your own food, that you actually know where it came from and the things that have been done to it.
But getting back to it, I think one part you are missing. You are more than a farmer. I want you to want you to get to a point of you being an activist. You and your husband, Mr. John Boy. That's what Matt was waiting for. You heard him back. He's quiet all the time. Like, yes, yes. So elaborate a little bit more, because I know Jermaine does a lot of work in the community with kids and everything else. So we're gonna get back to him on that too as well.
Yeah. So we actually, we have a case that we're weighing in Florida for the debt relief, emergency debt relief for farmers of color. It was passed in the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And shortly after it passed, white farmers went and filed an injunction, filed against it, claiming reverse discrimination. Mm-hmm. So we're currently in 12 different courts fighting for those farmers to get that relief. But we also are very active in growing new farmers in the next generation. So we have a scholarship program. It's 4 years fully funded to the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, which I think is awesome. And I think a lot of times people don't see the pathways through agriculture. If you wanted to do animal science, you could become a veterinarian, or you could use it to become a medical doctor. There's agribusiness, there's engineering. There's so many things that everything comes from the farm. You might didn't wake up today and need a doctor or a lawyer, but guess what? You needed a farmer.
So how hard is it to continue to get people, to convince people, or not? I don't want to, convince is not the right word, because that has a bit of a negative connotation. But in terms of maybe bringing people into the farming community, bringing young people into farming, how difficult is that in this day and age? Because as you said, I mean, unless you live in a rural area, you really don't know that much about farming, other than, that's where your food comes from when you go to the grocery store, right?
Right. And that's why, I'm so thankful for so many social media platforms. And thank you, Vic, for having me on your podcast. April the 27th, I'll actually be doing a Pinterest webinar. Let's get growing and we grow farmers. And that's the thing, is that, what's the difference between a garden and a farm? A farm is a business. There's no minimum land size.
Can you say that again for them again, please?
The difference between a garden and a farm is a business. That's it. And there's no minimum land size.
He write it
down. We have people in New York City making six figures on a rooftop. I can show you how to make money out of a container. You could actually be farming in your basement or in your closet if you wanted to grow mushrooms. So those are the things that we have to look at it as, as a business entrepreneurship. How can you start from, I had some leftover tomatoes. Okay, Kara, go out there, plant them. Now I got some tomato plants. I'm going to clone them. I'm going to do this. It's the business mindset. And that's one thing that I think we've always had, excuse me, as Indigenous people and, farmers, growers, producers. We have to have food. And the emphasis hasn't been put on that. It was kind of taken away. And now we're finding that, our soil isn't healthy. Our food isn't healthy. Our air isn't healthy. Mother Earth isn't healthy. So, how do we get back into balance with Mother Earth? And we're hearing a lot of terms, regenerative agriculture and permaculture, sustainability, and those are the things, though, that it's challenging to get most people, most consumers, to really consider where their food is coming from and how they're contributing to that, because a lot of the issues that we have in America is from food waste.
Wherever or whenever, it's Big Victory.
I have 20 acres of hemp planted in Virginia, and I use this product right here, man. Bam, FX. This is it. You got to put this on there, on that plant. This, bam. Give us some jump, some fire, some green, some texture, and the texture changed from the plant, from a soft lime green to a dark green, and my hemp began to grow after 2 applications of BAM. So I think that you guys should try it, and went through the whole team, through the president, Harvey, to the spokesperson, Mr. Marley, who did a wonderful job today. So I believe that a lot of farmers will try the product based on what they heard here at the conference today. This has been a wonderful conference, and I hope next year you guys come out. Visit us online too at NBFA, National Black Farmers Association, and look up BAM, because it's a product that most people haven't heard of, and I believe that it can make a big difference on your crop. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Big Victory Podcast, for real.
Jermaine, yeah, I know for a fact, because I kind of know you for a while now. Tell people about your background, man. How you grew up and some of the challenges you have, because you're originally from where? And don't try to be fancy with it.
Oh no, I'm originally from Haiti. I'm from an area called Haiti. In Haiti called Fond-en-Egg, and Fond-en-Egg has a really interesting history. So Fond-en-Egg, actually, what it's called is called the Mountain of Men. And essentially, the reason it's called that is because if you know the history back of Haiti, it was the first slave colony to successfully revolt against the masters, which was the French. And for that, those guys who were enslaved there used to escape sometimes up in the mountains in this area called Fond-en-Egg, which where I'm from. If you ended up making it there, it was almost next to impossible to find everybody. So they were able to get up there and get away, and just basically create a colony up there that was free, which is kind of essentially where a lot of the first revolutions came from. So that's kind of where I'm from. Believe it or not, my family comes from generations of farmers. So I always grew up around my parents growing food, growing the farmers market. So land was a big deal. We still own a bunch of land in Haiti. I go there all the time and plant trees. I've actually planted over 400 trees in Haiti. Actually, I used to be a part of this project where we used to go back there every couple of years and plant trees in places that are deforested. So that's my background there on that one. And then I ended up grew up in Orlando, went to FAU, which is in Boca.
Sir.
And
ended up. Oh, listen to Mav. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Let's
That's
go.
yeah.
Let's go.
I ended up somehow, I started off studying like business and stuff like that. I don't know how I ended up. Somehow I ended up getting a double degree in urban planning and urban design.
They sold you on it. That's how.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know, I was sold on about this really great counselor that I kind of had a crush on too.
That's why he did it. It's always the girl. It's always the ladies.
Yeah, I do sometimes, but she kind of steered me right because, I ended up becoming really passionate about it. It was a well-rounded degree for me. Unfortunately, I graduated at the worst time. When I graduated, it was the very beginning of the economic downturn, so I never really got a chance to work in it. You know what I mean? So I was kind of bouncing around, started my own businesses 2 or 3 times, but it was always something that I ended up moving with. As far as what I realized, I liked the whole community aspect of building and designing structures, right down to how we move about it, how we feed ourselves with it. All those things were something that was passionate as far as I guess it was economic development. You know what I mean? Because that kind of encompasses everything we do. What we're doing right now is part of economic development. The farming is economic development because all that stuff changes how we move around and how we live. So that's kind of always been my passion with that. So a lot of things that I do or get involved with, somehow I always bring it back to there.
Wow. Did you know I've been to Haiti?
Yeah, you have? When?
She more than been to Haiti. You know what? I break news here.
Not in the summer.
Okay? Not for the summer. She spent a lot of time in Haiti.
Oh, yeah? Good. I need to spend more time actually in Haiti because it's there's a lot of stuff I want to learn over there. But when did you go to Haiti? The last time, I guess.
The last time I was there in 2013. And, my Haitian Creole is really bad. And it was a big conversation. I actually went to Miami and prepped and stayed with a Haitian family before going to Haiti. I went to Carnival in Jacmel. And so I've been to, of course, Port-au-Prince, Del Mar, Tabar. And so, but the one thing I remember is Mes Grands Goûts. And,
It's Gangu. You're hungry.
I'm hungry.
You got chicken? You got chicken?
They said, Kara, what are you going to do when you get there and, you can't speak the language? I said, I'm just going to smile, I'll figure it out. So it was really interesting. And, I have giant rabbits that I do here that I've done some things with. And,
I want one.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that. And so, Haiti, the word is actually Taino. It means in mountainous. And there are actually villages in Haiti. And there's just so much that, we don't really, dig into our lens of who we are, where we're from, the migration of people, and I'm actually enrolled Native American. Here, my tribe is from North Carolina. And it's just been amazing to kind of go back beyond that, thanks to Ancestry DNA and several other ways, but to better connect to my ancestral roots. So I do have some Nigerian, so that might explain why Victor and I kind of get along.
Yeah, you're Haitian that blood, sister. You're Haitian of blood.
Yeah.
Mav, you over here, all these plaques behind you. You know Carol's starting a music school, right? The funny story is everybody has connected one way or the other, including Jeremy, because he's from the farm too. Mav actually did a record that's called The Zoo for Cara production. Explain more, Mav.
Yes. So for Mr. John Boyd graced us, and he gave us basically a dissertation on black farmers and the history of black farmers in America, and they gave me the blessing to be able to produce that track. Which features KJ Marley as well. Can't leave him out. He definitely did his thing on there. So, Miss Cara, thank you from my bottom of my heart, because that meant so much to me. And Vic, one thing I wanted to tell you too, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. Both of my grandfathers were both farmers as well.
Oh, wow.
So I spoke to my parents about this recently. My grandfather, my late grandfather on my mother's side, he was, during like the peak of his career, he was the president of the Banana Association in Dominica. And then my other grandfather on my father's side as well. He apparently, I'm finding out now more about him, and he managed like 12 farms across the entire country.
Wow.
Like multi-acre farms. And I'm just like, man, like that's just, it's in my blood, it's in my heritage. So when I had the opportunity to produce this track, I was like, oh, I have to, you know what I mean? It just means so much to me.
That's fantastic.
Jeremy, your experience.
Cara saying that kind of brings me back to something I was watching like last year. So it's really, really important. I think people don't realize really how much of a business it really is, because I think, who was it? It's what's happening right now in like South Africa, but it happened first. I think in Zimbabwe, right there. They were reappropriating colonized land that was taken by white Europeans, decades, generations ago, back to Native Africans. And in Zimbabwe, I believe, like when they did that mass wholesale, they were just taking people's land. Hey, we're going to give it back to these guys. And these guys, they were farmers, right? That they give it back to, but they're like, small time farmers. They can probably produce a couple loads or whatever. Now you're asking them to produce like multi-tons. Those farms were failing across the board, almost to the point they had to bring people back in order to run these farms, because they didn't have the skill set, the know-how in order to produce, multi-tons of food. And it's a real skill. And if you don't know what you're doing, you'll fail, and you'll fail very fast.
But is that sorry, Cara, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, that goes back to the same thing that we're facing here. And, I just really can't wrap my hand around it. We have large corporate companies like PepsiCo, that will go to these third world countries and they'll build infrastructure and capacity, but they won't do it here for America's Black farmers and other minority farmers, knowing, the history from slavery to sharecropping, to these land grabs. And it takes money, it takes equipment, it takes sharing knowledge. And so when the average Black farmer, doesn't have access to the capital, their farm is less than 50 acres. I mean, how do you grow a potato contract for Pepsi that says we only want to work with someone who has, 500 to 1,000 acres? We're never going to break that model until we begin to realize and put real money, infrastructure, and capacity into these small-scale farm operations. And so that's one of the things that I do. I'm the event and program coordinator for the National Black Farmers Association. And it's just really, we watch those models all around the globe. And I get requests all the time, from African countries to come and partner with them. And one of the greatest needs is equipment. But you get the equipment if you can't service it and you can't find parts. And right now, America's farmers are really struggling because of the increase of fertilizer. And so, we're really trying to go back and look at more local, small-scale production, how we can make that work, because America has really built itself to be on a larger conglomerate scale. And we have these companies that just continue to buy out smaller companies. So when we don't have that competitiveness, it really makes it hard for small-scale farmers to hold their footing in the corporate.
Well, and as you said too, I mean, the bigger the farm, the more it's producing, and the less you know what is actually happening with that food down the chain. So, Karen, one of the questions I want to ask you is, first of all, how big is the association?
Well, our association is over 30 years old, 31 years, and we have over 116,000 members across the United States. And those aren't just farmers, full-time farmers. We have part-time farmers. We have a lot of dormant landowners because our farmers were impacted by the tobacco buyout, the peanut buyout, and some of them impacted by heirs property where they don't have clear title and ownership to their land. So there's varying degrees of our members, but we have 116,000.
So the other question I have is because when you talk about farming, you talk about agriculture, and you talk about the, big companies. I mean, we know why big companies are going to Africa, because it's cheaper. It's cheaper for them, right? They can make more money, and it's cheaper to buy the things and set up the infrastructure. So it's about money. But what the question I have is, how are we, maybe, I don't want to say so much as a living being, but like as human beings, how tenuous is the situation between demand and production in terms of one outweighing the other? Because we're seeing now with supply chain issues that demand is much higher than what is actually there. And that's just not in farming, that's across a number of industries. Jermaine, you spoke about that there's, certainly in the technology sector, there is that happening. We've seen that with cars. But from a farming perspective, how thin is that line in terms of the balance that we're trying to maintain?
Well, it's very thin. And in fact, we have Smithfield Foods, which is a large pork producer. And they have headquarters here in North Carolina and Virginia. And they're now currently owned by China. And we don't have an open grain elevator, public grain elevator in Virginia. Those have been sold out. We have one. The one that we had before now belongs to Smithfield, and the only other grain elevator we grow soybeans and corn and wheat that's available for our farmers to sell to is Purdue. And right now we have Cargill, who is trying to buy up Sanderson Farms, a poultry farm, that a lot of my farmers have in North Carolina. So that's the thing, is when we, that demand is there, but you only have a few sources, especially like for seed and things. It makes everything, the line is very thin because it could be easily disrupted.
And monopolization, obviously, if the big companies keep buying up all the little ones, like to your point about competition becomes less and less because it becomes more monopolized.
Right. And, you have, soybean seeds, GMOs, and, 10 years ago, you could buy a bag of soybean seeds, 50 pounds for $8. Now they're $60. The farmers are saying, how long am I going to have to pay for this technology that you say that you've developed? And, a farmer, if he planted soybeans, he could harvest them and he could save some of his soybeans to plant for up to 3 years. And now you can't do that. Bayer Monsanto is the only company I know, well, other than PepsiCo, that actually sues its own farmers.
Are they being sued themselves?
Yeah. Well, Bayer Monsanto will sue a farmer if they come out, and like if you're an organic farmer and you end up with some of their traits in your beans because of cross pollination. I mean, those are things that a farmer just can't control.
Right.
And they will sue those farmers because they said that's their patent, that they own that technology. And PepsiCo did the same thing in India with some farmers over some seed potatoes. And, we're talking food, we're talking, the future if we have famines. I mean, what are we to do when we've allowed companies to license seeds? Something that,
That's crazy.
That's something that's crazy.
That's true. I was reading, they were saying that's really dangerous to these foods that have, like, they were lessening like the variety of population of, let's say, like the corn. It's very dangerous if you only have one kind. If some type of famine hits that particular one, you can lose huge amounts of food.
Yep, monocrop, and we know that. And a lot of farmers we talk about, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to.
We break news. Stop. Say everything. Say everything.
It's a safe space, Kara. Don't worry. It's a safe space.
Farmers Feed America. Most farmers, large-scale farmers aren't growing food to feed America. They're growing corn for ethanol and, soybeans for oil and things like that. So, there's a very big misconception, and it's a lot of the smaller-scale farmers that are actually feeding America.
Wherever or whenever, it's Big Victory.
I have 20 acres of hemp planted in Virginia, and I use this product right here, man. Bam, FX. This is it. You got to put this on there, on that plant. This, bam. Give it some jump, some fire, some green, some texture, and the texture changed from the plant, from a soft lime green to a dark green, and my hemp began to grow after 2 applications of BAM. So I think that you guys should try it, and went through the whole team, through the president, Harvey, to the spokesperson, Mr. Marley, who did a wonderful job today. So I believe that a lot of farmers will try the product based on what they heard here at the conference today. This has been a wonderful conference, and I hope next year you guys come out. Visit us online too at NBFA, National Black Farmers Association, and look up BAM, because it's a product that most people haven't heard of, and I believe that it can make a big difference on your crop. Thank you.
We're back with the Big Victories podcast. Here's your host, Big Vic, for real, with co-host Mev the Renegade.
All right, let's get to something here, Carol, which actually is important to me because I break news on this show because I took Jeremy's job. I'm the journalist. I'm just joking, okay? I'm just joking. But all seriousness, I have a lot of kids down here who actually, Mav know a couple of them too, that want to become farmers, or they just want to grow food, do food desert. One thing that COVID taught most people these days, you can live without sports, you can live without TV, but you can't live without food. So how do one become a small farmer or a small garden, build a small garden, if they want to get the state to recognize them? What is that process?
Well, the first step is to self-identify. Self-identification is key. So saying, yeah, hey, I'm a farmer. I'm growing and producing food. And like I said, the difference between the garden and the farm is the business and the business plan. And you can take a $3 mint plant and, harvest the leaves. 10 to 15 leaves is about an ounce. And you sell that for about $3. And you can lay those branches over in a container, and it's going to spread, and you're going to keep harvesting fresh mint leaves. And then you can take some of those fresh mint leaves and you can put them in a yellow envelope, set it on your windowsill or the dash of your car, and in about 7 to 10 days, you're going to have mint tea. So now you've got a value-added product, and you can do e-commerce. And you can write off part of your house payment because you've got a at-home business. Your car payment, your car insurance, wow. Your utilities, because they're all now
I'm a farmer.
Hey, at the end
my
of the
backyard
year,
might have we grow a mango tree.
why aren't we doing now? I mean, and that's the thing that we have to be careful. And, I'm really glad to do this. And most small businesses, self-employed people are familiar with filing a Schedule C, but they're not familiar with filing a Schedule F for farm income. And at the end of the year, that's what kind of distinguishes a farm business. And when you go to USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, and you start to apply for taxpayer funding, right? Some of that free money, guess what they're going to ask you for? Your Schedule F.
Schedule F.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so, these are the things that the National Black Farmers Association has worked really hard to make sure that we're getting out good information. And we don't charge people for any of this. There's a lot of people out there who charge for, this type of consultation. But to us, we grow farmers, and we're interested in increasing that number so that for future generations, we'll have that skill set. So it's very important to those young people to understand there's not a minimum age. I have a 3-year-old that's farming, sells more eggs than I do. There's no minimum education requirement. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have a certificate. These are things. And like I said, to me, the key to starting is self-identification. There's power in words, and, we have the power to speak these things. And so I encourage everyone out there who wants to be a farmer, be a farmer. Put something in the ground, start growing, look at that business plan, how you can, even if you're just contributing to your own household budget, the significance of that.
I was going to say, if I'm an apartment dweller, or I'm somebody that lives in a big city and I am interested in doing something like that, I mean, how do I go about starting? How do I even start that? And I don't want to take anything away from your webinar, April 27th, Pinterest webinar.
No, take it away. It's ours.
No, I want to make sure that I want to make sure that we're not spoiling it all here. Obviously, there's going to be some great information given there.
We're going to go through it together, hands-on. And that's the thing, is now they're looking at that more urban and inner city farming. And that's where it's not based upon acres. A lot of people have the concept that you're a farmer if you have 5, 10, 50 acres. It's not. There's no minimum land size requirement. The potential for you is to be able to demonstrate that you can gross $1,000. And I gave those numbers to you in that sample with the mint. Whether it was tomatoes, basil, whatever the case may be. If you grow habanero peppers and you create a pepper jelly, these are the things that we have to look at doing. And I tell people, look at what you're consuming. Usually indicates what you're willing to purchase. And so that's a good place to start. And for people who like mushrooms, it's a very high-end return on investment on those. Shiitake and lion's mane are two that I recommend. And you can go to fungi perfecti. And you can get those. You can grow them in logs. You can grow them in sawdust. You can grow them in your closet or in your backyard under a canopy. And those are the things that I'm going to have to go there. I'm sorry, Vic. But, if we want to address food deserts, you got to turn them into a food oasis. That's the only way that we're going to solve this, if we get more people growing food in those spaces. So Jermaine, with your urban planning, all that comes back into focus.
Yeah, you got to get Jermaine more active. He's too laid back for me, man.
Yeah, I mean, people went to New York City, they moved up north, but guess what? They had gardens, they planted food. And so those are the things that we have to get back to. Not everything is going to thrive there, but we're finding ways in which we can grow and produce, even if it's small scale. And you think of the number of people who, traditionally had living plants in their homes, and NASA actually recommends that you have one living plant per 100 square feet. I go to most homes now and they don't even have a living plant, and these are the things that farming, even if it's cut flowers or a nursery, still is a form of agriculture. So those are the things. And plant propagation, imagine if you just took a blueberry plant, cut the ends of it off and did cuttings and sold those blueberry cuttings, now plants, for $15 each. That's where we have to get back to, and that's such a needed skill set.
But I think that's part of for me, when I think about it, I mean, I don't have a green thumb, but I have grown things before. I've had a house, I've had a yard, I've had a garden, like I've done those kind of things, but that was more for me, for my table. But if I'm someone that wants to get into that business, okay, I can grow this stuff, and you're giving me profit margins in terms of what I can, what that's worth, but who am I selling that to? Where am I taking that, and who am I selling it to? Because I'm thinking, well, if I go to the grocery store, they've already got their people. They don't need my stuff. So where am I selling it?
I have a 150 store grocery chain right now that's looking for farmers just like you.
Okay.
Because and actually starting where you are, then you're able to scale that operation. Think of someone going to a bank and asking for money to open a restaurant, but they've never cooked. They can't demonstrate the culinary skill set.
Right.
So that's why it's important for individuals such as yourself to be able to document and demonstrate that, plant selection, irrigation, weed control, harvesting, marketing. And there are a lot of local farmers markets and places, and even a restaurant, if you're doing mint, that may want to buy it for a garnish. And people who are doing juices and things. So don't think that it has to be large scale. What you really want to do is start small and then scale your operation. I would rather do bad and lose a $3 plant than to go out there and invest $30,000 in a farm business and have it sink.
Right.
Well, this is the part of the show where I break news and dig into people. I'm taking, but
do your thing, Vic. Do your thing.
I don't break no news, man. I'm just be talking crap, okay? But Jermaine, that's my question. That's my only question I ever get right in the show. What would you tell your 16-year-old self right now, if you could have that conversation? That will go same for you too, Karen.
16-year-old self. Honestly, I'd be like, listen, save every red penny, max out.
You sound like math.
All in the bank, and then when Bitcoin comes, throw everything at it and sit back.
Wow.
I wish, right?
Karen.
Well, my 16-year-old self, wasn't doing all that she should have been doing. And so I would look back now and say to myself, hey, it's about those grades. I mean, kids today have such an opportunity. When I was in high school, there wasn't a lot of emphasis on your GPA. We weren't really, but, to tell those students, see themselves through, Kara, go to class. And I guess I'm going to tell this. This is going to be the breaking news, right?
Yeah, great news.
I was considered such a bad influence that the high school English teacher banned me, refused to allow me to walk across the stage with the graduating.
Oh, heck.
What?
No way.
I'm a real troublemaker.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I feel good about myself now.
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm telling you, what she was upset with me about is, I was taking care of my grandmother. My mom was in Texas. I was in high school. And, taking care of our grandparents is one of our roles, So I would have to go home and everything. And she was like, look, and I only needed 2 classes to graduate. So I worked it out with the principal for me to go to the local community college, pick up those credits, and I could stay home and take care of my grandmother. So the high school English teacher, she said, well, no, that's a bad example, because if we let Kara do it and everybody sees it, then they're going to want to do it too. So my principal, he said, Kara, is it about walking across the stage or is it about graduating? Because I was enlisted to go to the Air Force. And I said, it's not about walking across that stage. It's about that diploma that I'm going to get. I'm going to go on to the next phase of my life. And so I did that. I came back, got my diploma, went to the Air Force. I stayed there 35 days before they kicked me out.
Damn, you got that too? Wow. So then this question is perfect for you then. Oh, wow, this question is perfect then. Kara, at what point did you realize you saw your big victory coming? At what point did you see that door cracking open, that you was going the right direction?
That was it, because I was always challenging systems. I was always challenging what people took to be the norm, So I know that not everybody fits into that, cookie cutter system.
Mm-hmm.
So I was one of those. My father was murdered when I was 5. We moved around a lot. And so, I wasn't that perfect student. I was intelligent. I was smart, so I could make the grades. But my home life sometimes, wasn't all that others would see it to be.
Right.
And so that's what happened. And as I went through these things, and today I can say that I actually went back, got my bachelor's degree in education, and I created a university model school. And my daughter graduated high school at 14, had her first college degree at 15. And, those are the things. So what you see sometimes is challenges and potential failures, and maybe it's not measuring up to what society would have you to think that you should be doing. Sometimes it's about that fight, and it's about doing things differently, because that's when you get a different outcome. So that's what I would say to myself is, keep causing good trouble.
One of the things I love about this podcast, and we've only done a few of them, but one of the things that I've loved about just everybody that we've had on is that everybody sees the world in such a different way.
Yeah.
Yes.
They see the world in such a different way, and they challenge what's in front of them. And when, one of the questions I always have is, what do you say when someone says no to you? What do you do? How do you react when someone says no? And the answers are always so unique. It's like you're not taking no for an answer, but at the same time, you're processing what the no is about and then taking that and changing it in order to succeed in the end, which I think is, so important. But one of the things I love is just that, challenge all the norms, challenge it all, because it's, that's an amazing story, Kara, about how you were able to just challenge that. And yeah, it was a negative outcome, but as we've said before on this podcast, you don't lose in life, you win and you learn. And you learned, and then you ended up getting the win in the end. So I think and now you're helping other people get those wins. And I think that's so important.
I think you really just kind of figure out where you fit.
Yeah. I just feel like I've come such full circle, and I would have thought I would have been at the White House with the president and meeting some of the people that I've met. Even with Victor, going places and doing things and being involved with BAMFX and micronutrients and growing food. It's so important in these next generations. And so, to me, I'm just thankful because I feel like the Creator, has taken me down so many paths. But at the end of the day, it's always been about, okay, what's in this for more people, the next generation? How do we make things better? And, always people over profit.
One thing that get away from, I want to speak to Jermaine about that. Jermaine has a close tie with the African Union, I believe, right, Jermaine? Is that what it was? Because I remember I saw you throwing glasses up with some king or prince. Well, I was jealous, but they didn't invite me. But tell me more about that. What's your relationship with the African Union?
Well, so I've been getting involved with they're called, but it's a triumvirate of countries there, and including Ghana and some of their initiatives they had. Kind of like just formed that relationship about a couple years ago. They are coming back around, and then there's an opportunity for a project. Kind of went out and met everybody in Paris, which is great. That's what all the
that's the one I was jealous of, the one in Paris.
All the rich folks in Africa go to Paris. So we met up there and really had some great conversations that I'm hoping going to carry on to this year. I have a lot of things that I kind of put out there that I want to accomplish, and I can definitely tell you if we get the right partners and the right people in Africa, it's definitely invest in, especially as somebody who's just trying to come up small. But I'm very much rooted into the opportunities I have here in America for just some balance, especially if you're trying to do it on your own, trying to find partners. Well, as opposed to when you go to Africa, it's like mountains and mountains of opportunities. We just got to dig a lot harder to get the right people, the right place. Because money is going to take you so far. You can really go, in some of these third countries with bags of money. If you don't know what you're doing, it'll disappear on you quick.
Yeah.
What do you think? So that's the key difference. That's the key difference in working in emerging markets. You really have to really be careful and pick the partners and get the right people around.
Well, then I would say this, which I want to get Mav involved in it because he's been too quiet, Mav, Kara has she's building she has a studio, a production, and I'm always selling your service for free.
Oh yeah.
She has in Virginia. She has a music school that she's going to build, and there's a lot of people I deal with when into the music, but the way you teach music and you enjoy it, and I think you're going to be great. Because I even want this year, Carol. I'm gonna break some news here, Jermaine and Jeremy, the voice. Um, the conference this year. Where's this conference going to be at the National Black Association conference? Because I want Mav to attend and
Well,
Jeremy.
Yeah, we would love to have that. In fact, I'm working on a new partnership with the St. Augustine University in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a HBCU, and they actually have a school of film and theater. And we have a MOU that we're executing so that we can have the Boyd Institute there. So we're thinking possibly there as one potential location. But we would love to invite you guys. It's always the first weekend in November.
Awesome.
So, Mav.
They even have a TV station.
So definitely Jeremy coming.
And you know, and that's the thing is we have to collaborate. We have to build out these partnerships. And, you know, I mean, I would just so much love to, you know, engage with more young people and, you know, challenge our educational system. I get in trouble and I'm going to get in trouble again. You know, because if you need 16 credits to go to college, why does the local public board of education require you to have 28 to 32 to graduate? You know, that's where we're missing it. And when you get to college, then you got to do those 24 gen ed credits all over again. And so, you know, a lot of our kids are just, you know, they're not getting what they need and they're not being challenged. And when I created the University Model School, I did it in partnership with a local church, and I was able to offer $50 a week tuition. And, you know, it was cheaper than most daycare. And, you know, we did a 5x5 and we had people going to college. We had a 100% graduate rate, you know, and those kids, they went to school from 12 to 5. You know, the thing is we interpret things sometimes as being mandated, but they're recommended. And so that's what I would say through the MBFA. I'm not an attorney. I just play one on TV.
I play on the street.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just challenging those systems, you know, to look at things, because sometimes we accept things to be a norm, or we have a perception of the way that things are, and they're not. So we put ourselves in a box. We're like that elephant who, you know, is free to roam, but they still think that they're chained. And so in our minds and in our hearts and in our lives, what we're doing, you know, we really need to break free and look at the way that we're doing things and do them in a better way, especially for future generations, because we know our educational system is broken. Our schools are overcrowded. We have all these issues. So if there's some way that we could stimulate some of them to go on to those next levels, why aren't we doing that? You know, I think we're failing some of our young people by keeping with these traditional systems that we know just aren't working.
You're listening to the Big Victories podcast.
Hello, my name's Tim Peach. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of BAM Agricultural Solutions. Wanted to just tell you how I became involved with the organization and why. First of all, the product, the people, the interest in dealing with international issues such as global hunger are extremely important items to deal with, obviously for a number of reasons, and that is we have people that have hidden hunger, and the UN has brought out the fact that hidden hunger is a major problem throughout the world. BAMFX can improve the nutritional value of the crops and improve the yield quality of the crops.
The Big Victories podcast, hosted by Big Vic, with co-host Mev the Renegade.
Look, every morning that I wake up, say a prayer and thank the maker for the chance to rise and grind.
Well, and now we're hearing about, you know, learning and, you know, the fact that kids have been affected by COVID, that COVID is, you know, resulted in kids not being able to learn or problems learning, or it set children back because of the fact that, you know, they couldn't do the Zoom classes or whatever. And I think to your point, Kara, about challenging kind of the system. I think what we've seen with COVID is a lot of that starting to kind of happen, that people are now, they don't want to go back to work. And now they kind of want to work from home a little bit, and they want to, they don't want to go back to the office. And, there was a recent survey that was done, and the results came back and said that over 50% of the people they asked said that they would find other work if they were mandated to go back to the office full time, because people want that flexibility. So we're starting to see some of that change, the Great Resignation and all that other stuff, but it needs to trickle down to the education system, to what you were saying. It needs to, if kids are having problems learning, then we need to, the answer is just not to throw them back in school. They're having problems learning because there's other things going on.
Right. And I think that if most parents actually took the time to look at this educational system, and I can speak about what I know, so I'll speak about North Carolina, that the reading level is 8th grade. You only have to read on an 8th grade level to graduate high school. Once you get your 8th grade EOG, that's it. So these are the things that, we really should be looking at to say, are our standards really where they need to be? And challenging that system, because sometimes you don't know, you're thinking, well, I thought it would have been higher than that, but it's not. And so in determining what determines your grade level, when you transition from junior high school, elementary school, there you're on an academic calendar, but once you get to high school, you're on credits. And what determines your grade level is actually your English. And so these are the things that most parents, if we're going to be strategic and move our students through these systems and to be more critical thinkers and, just logistically looking at life as to how we accomplish things, I think that we have to begin with the educational system. Because we have a lot of brokenness there. There's a lot of money that goes into that system. Yeah. And, that really bothered me, because when I sent my daughter to the local community college, they wanted to test her. They were like, well, we don't know if we can take her because she's under 16. And of course, Kara being Kara said, well, you have open enrollment. She's 14 years old. And if you don't accept her, I'm going to sue you for age discrimination. As long as she has a high school diploma, then you have open enrollment. There's no other standards for her to pass. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we have to challenge those systems. And the same thing with farming and agriculture. Just because we think that this is what a farm or this is how the traditional food production system is working, within you, your family, your home, and your community, we need to reevaluate that.
Kara's the one you want to take with you when you go to buy a car.
Yeah, she's yeah.
I agree with that, because my sister, a longtime teacher, actually got a Teacher of the Year award in Central Florida, and she's now running the program for minority children curriculums, and a lot of things that we've seen in a lot of communities. Of course, the parents, for sure. You have a lot of parents that have real problems. Maybe the school system that you want to, but it starts at home a lot of times. You got kids that are basically, they're just aging out of the system, so it gets to the point where, like, hey, if she's failed first grade, second grade, third grade so many times,
get out of here.
Oh, you got to get out of here. There isn't the resources, there isn't the money, because some states don't have, are being carried by other states as well. So I think that in depending on where you are and who's running that population, where the leadership pool comes from, is where you're really going to see real investment. The decision to make real investment in education. A lot of times, man, those people came up with that in that system, and they're not that bright themselves, right? And so they don't see it. It's like, when you see why they keep cutting on the arts program and all this stuff, because people that are there don't see it as useful. Just feel like, hey man, you figure that out on your own. So I think you see that a lot right now in the education system. In some places like Miami-Dade are trying. I can definitely say I can feel like Miami-Dade is trying, but you have a lot of places just falling further and further behind.
So I have a friend of mine that I worked with who is a company that I worked for here in Miami, the network I worked for before who I work for now, and he was a production assistant, and he decided he wanted to go and be a teacher. So he got a certification, and he went and he became a public school teacher in the Miami public school system, and I touched base with him, like, I think it was probably at the end of his first year, which was right around the time when we were starting to get into, just before COVID. So he'd done his first year, and then he was going to, the next year obviously got wiped out because of COVID and all the challenges and stuff. But I remember talking to him at the end of that first year, and one of the things that he said, I said, how is it? Like, are you enjoying it? You love it? Because he had that personality. Mm-hmm. He had that kind of personality that you thought, okay, this guy's going to connect with kids. Like, he's going to do it. And he said, it was hell on earth. He said, the system is so broken. It is so broken that he's like, you can't even fathom how broken it is. He says, I've spent so much money out of my own pocket to kind of make sure that these kids have the supplies and the things that they need. And he's like, and I didn't even do all that I could have done. And I've said this a lot. Like, when I got out of school, I had original thoughts of being a teacher, but then I was like, no, I will not be a good teacher at that point in time. But
actually be a great teacher, man.
But for me, I think that we have it backwards. I think we've kind of turned it not backwards, but we don't have it right. Teachers should be amongst the highest paid people in our society. They should be getting paid like doctors and lawyers and stuff are getting paid, because they're educating the future. They're educating the future.
I think one point we missed, educators are paid that way, but guess what? They're paid that way when it comes to collegiate professors, because now you have the business aspect to it. But when it comes to the public service aspect, they're underpaid. That's where the disconnect is.
Right, but and the question I always have is why is a college football coach getting paid $8 million a year to coach 52 players for 13 games in a season, but yet a public school educator can't find enough money to buy pencils?
You know what,
like say? And I get it. That coach makes money for the school.
Yeah. You want to answer it?
That's how FAU raised a ton of money. They were basically, yeah, it does. I know it does. You don't feel like it should make sense, but if you look at it from economic terms, it does make sense, because their job is to put as many people in those stands as possible, and for them to pay, and they're gonna make hundreds of thousands of dollars per game. So that's why they can demand that much money.
Right.
So, it's not easy job to get either.
No, and I get it. Lane Kiffin was getting paid what? He got what, $2-3 million?
Yeah, it was
or $5 million or something he got at FAU, which was like ridiculous for Conference USA. It was like huge money for Conference USA. They normally the highest
paid public employees in the state. Basically, most of the time.
Right, but there needs to be more of a connection between upper level education and lower level education, because you're funneling the same people into that thing. So there needs to be more of a connection for that.
Here's what I'll say about the education system, again, as far as what I've seen in the system, man. These places where they're underserved, underprivileged, it's all the way around. When you go to these areas, we see all these things. When you really go into these areas, forget about the school. Look at what's coming through the door, just right then and there. You as a teacher, I can't tell you. You want to talk about people who are discouraged. So many teachers are discouraged. They're looking for a way out, because it's like, you're going through all this. You got kids coming in with anger problems, hungry, living on the street, they're half homeless. They basically would rather sleep in the backyard in the rain than to deal with their stepdad. All this stuff that we have a soft white underbelly in this country that we wouldn't believe, and we're not, until we're willing to pull up the rug and deal with all that stuff, we can't. It's so easy right now to say, let's just start education. Education ain't even in the beginning of the problem.
You should run for mayor. I got you. You got my vote.
We're not even dealing with all the stuff they're going through before they walk through the door.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
I work at a chamber. I saw kids coming in, and some of these kids were immigrant kids that, hey, they just dropped here. They don't got a social security number. Spring break comes around, or summer break, they're on their own because mom and dad's at work. They don't even eat anything because half their meal for the day usually comes from school. Okay? You got all these things going on, and then you want them to walk in and sit down for how many hours a day, and learn and listen to you. They're not listening to you. They're getting disrespected at home. They're angry. They don't want to listen to you. They don't want to hear it. They want to get the heck out of here. Because it's like, yo, why don't I listen to you? You're barely making it yourself.
Jesus.
The problems start before the school because, man, it's real out there. People are, unfortunately, a lot of these kids that you see end up falling through the cracks. They get real life like smacked in the face.
Yeah.
From 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
Now, how you fix the problem then? We all know the problem. I'm gonna go around the clock. Mav, well, how do you fix something like that then?
Man, that's such an open-ended question, Vic. That there's so many policies and laws and people who are installed in places of power that need to change. And it's such a wide span, different levels to that.
Jeremy,
Tax the rich.
you know you're Canadian.
Tax the rich.
He's Canadian.
Hey,
Hey,
what
look at Jermaine. We said Jermaine rich. Look what he said when you say tax the rich.
So seriously, we tax the rich. Yo, we tax the rich. Like, I know we don't tax them when you like, but we tax the heck out of the rich for a lot of ways. Like, if you're a small business owner in the country, you pay the highest amount of tax. If you have a small business, and even if that small business is making $1 million a year, man, you have to do a lot not to pay them taxes. Those taxes are crazy.
There's a lot of the hoopla, man.
Yeah, this country is flooded. This country is flooded with money. It is flooded with money. Like, if you go look at gold, I forgot what website it is when you really can go see what's in the bills when they go up to Congress and vote all that what they call pork. Oh, here's $5 million for your green hair festival. That's what we burn through cash in this country like you wouldn't believe. Like, the money is the problem. There's just ridiculous money.
Well, the money's not the problem. It's where it's directed that's the problem. Right? So when I say tax the rich, I'm saying that, look, we've got a huge deficit, right? We're operating in a deficit situation that's going to just continue to go. Biden today, he proposed some $1 trillion budget with more taxes to the rich and like all of this, everything like this. But there was Elizabeth Warren's plan, which was what it was, 1 penny after a certain income level.
Yeah.
Then you're getting, I think, for every dollar you're getting penalized, and that would fund community education, that would fund healthcare or daycare for people. Like it would basically absorb a lot of the costs that a lot of families that are struggling would have to pay, which would allow them to then redirect things elsewhere, which you would hope would be into like food, education, all those kind of things you were talking about. And Jermaine, I completely agree with you. The education system is like the middle part, but there's all that other stuff that kind of leads up to it first.
Here's me playing devil's advocate. I'll give you another side of a very common argument. Rich conservative guy. Why do I need to give you that penny if you could just stop giving all this money to Planned Parenthood or welfare and and then stick it there? That's their argument.
No,
they where we are right now.
But there's
okay. But how you not give Ukraine, I don't know, $10 billion?
I saw something yesterday, and I would hate to say it. I wish one of y'all would have said it, but hell, I got caught saying it. This guy from Baltimore was showing the city of Baltimore. I thought I was looking at Ukraine. The damn building all tore apart, and I thought I was looking at a picture of Ukraine, and his capture was like, send us a percentage of that billion that went to Ukraine.
I'm telling you.
Right. And I'll take USDA. Like I said, I'll speak about what I know. What's the answer? I tell you, mental health, historical trauma. That's where it really starts. I won't tell you more of my own stories because John's going to be like, Kara.
Yeah, John. We don't want to hear from John. I can't hear from John today.
Yeah. And but there I was. Like I said, I come from one of the poorest counties in North Carolina, Robinson County. Michael Jordan's father pulled over on the side of the road to take a nap, never woke up because they killed him. It's bad. My father was murdered when I was 5. So I kind of came up with some of that, not, I would say a street mentality, hood mentality, but, just one of those. It wasn't, an elite neighborhood. But what I can say is I look back at these systems, and just like with USDA, with the $4 billion for the emergency debt relief for farmers of color, And what I see is that USDA is paying itself back. If USDA had already spent the money, gave it to the farmers, why is it coming back to you? And if the money comes back to you, then are you going to reallocate it? And for those farmers, why now, while we're still in court waiting for this resolve, is there still interest? And I would say that even on student loans, we know where we're at. We're looking at student loan debt forgiveness, but no one has stopped the collection of interest on those loans. And a lot of those students wouldn't be in the situation they would have been had them paid off if somebody would have just simply stopped the interest, the compounding daily interest. So those are the things I think we sometimes have some very simple solutions. But it's like it behooves them to do some of these things that would actually, create wealth or create opportunities for the masses in America.
One of the ideas that I heard, this was just a few weeks ago. I was reading something, and it said that how you solve the world's money problems?
Oh.
Everybody, if you had financial transparency, if you had world financial transparency, you would change the way that you would change the complete structure of society around the world. If everybody knew where the money was, who had it, who didn't, where it goes, where it's hidden, it would change everything. Obviously, that's never going to happen. But that was what was said as a solution. Is that, could you imagine if everybody just knew where the money was and who made what for what and where it went, how that would alter things, because of the fact that now you would see, okay, yeah, they're getting $5 million for their green hair festival, but yet, 2 streets over, they're starving or they're living in squalor, that would change.
Yeah,
those things would change.
The government, they're making it impossible. You find out with the like Jermaine was saying with the pork. Where the pork go to, like I remember there was
there's riders in every bill. Yeah.
There was what the old saying was in 2008, or there was a bridge being built, bridge out of nowhere. What was it? Alaska Bridge, something like that.
Yeah. But you have to go look at the. I'll give you 2 breaking news is here.
We break news, baby.
We break news. USspending.gov, I think it is, that tells you where all the government spending is going. You can put the NBFA in there, National Black Farmers, and you can see how much grant money we've gotten over the years. I have no problem with that transparency.
Can you say that again for us? Because we're going to actually capture that. What is it?
USA Spending.
Okay.
.gov. I think that's what it is. And then the other one is EWG, the Environmental Working Group, created the Farm Subsidy Database. And you can go on there and you can see these farmers collecting millions of dollars in farm subsidies, the largest welfare in the United States.
It's farming. I know that for
farming. Yeah. And so, but that's where it is. And we've called for that transparency. Congressman Bobby Rush put a bill forward, and I think Senator Cory Booker had endorsed it in the Senate. But it called for that transparency and that accountability, because right now we just don't have that in our lending programs.
Well, we have approximately 5 minutes left on the show. This is where we actually come in, just go around the table and ask somebody if he has to change something today about the situation or where you live or how you live, or if you were meant to somebody, what is one thing that you would tell them about you that got you to the point where you are right now? We'll go around the clock. I want to start with Jeremy.
No, don't start with me. Start with Carol. Ladies first.
Ladies first. Okay. Yes. Then we're going back to me because I'm fat.
I would have to say, I wouldn't change anything. And the reason I wouldn't change anything, because I wouldn't be where I am today doing what I am today. I met John Boyd on Facebook, social media. He told me he liked my greenhouse.
Can you tell him who John Boyd is, please, real quick?
Oh, well, John Boyd is my husband.
Okay.
He's a civil rights activist. He drove the mule and wagon and his tractor to D.C. and was instrumental in suing the government for discrimination, racial discrimination. And then went on to assist with the Black farmers lawsuits, Native American women.
How much that lawsuit was for? That was awarded?
Black farmers was $1.2 billion.
With a big B?
B.
Okay. Good.
And the one we're working on now is $4 billion in debt relief for farmers of color. And so, that's the thing, is I love where I am and what I'm doing today. And had I not had those experiences, they were bad. Yeah, some of them very negative. But it helps me with my lens today, to be able to try to make the world a better place, because I've walked in some of those shoes. And I say, I guess one of the things that has come to me in my life is, well, why not you? And I found myself at a very early age. I think I was about 18, and I looked in the mirror and I said to myself, there's no one else to blame. Yeah, your father was murdered at 5. Yeah, your mom worked 3 jobs, but if you don't graduate high school, it's not their fault. It's yours. Whatever choices you're making today, it's on you. And so I have to say that, I wish sometimes I had made better decisions, but because of those decisions, I am where I am today. So I'm thankful for that, and for the Creator for grace and mercy, and for great people in my life like you, Victor, and Jermaine.
Oh my God, I feel good.
Contributed.
Changing lives.
Yeah, I feel good now. Jermaine?
I think for me, it's probably like, it's kind of like that question of my younger self. I would say the best thing that happened for me is that I kind of stopped waiting for a safety net. Working these dead-end jobs and all this stuff, and I really didn't know where I wanted to go. And at some point, man, I just stopped giving a damn and said, you know what? I'm going to figure out some way to not live under a bridge. Right? Once I kind of let go.
Sorry.
Like, I thought about it. I really if worst came to job, I'll end up at my parents' house or whatever it is. But I'm not doing this anymore. You know what I mean? And so once I kind of got out of that mindset, it kind of freed me a bit to really go out and take some chances and do something real. Even the last couple of years, I've still been doing the same thing. I would say, I don't think I really started doing what I really wanted to do until like 2 years ago.
What, 2 years ago? Oh, you! Wow, that's big, because you have done so much things, man.
Yeah, but you realize, okay, you take the opportunities where they come, and then do you certainly enjoy them while you're doing all this stuff? But I always feel like you have your own passions and things where you kind of find your fit. And I probably say 2 years ago, 2.5 years, I really kind of started feeling like, I found my fit. I'm in my groove.
He found his big victory.
Yeah, that's what
that's what it was. Yeah,
and you hear stories about people who were big time stockbrokers, made millions of dollars, and then they ended up going to Thailand somewhere, and now they say, you know what, I'm not going back to all the hustle and bustle. And they've never been happier because they don't got to wear a suit anymore. That's somebody finally finding their fit. So I feel like you got to really kind of be able to go out there in this world and take some chances and don't get locked into the system. Because we are definitely in the system. The system is going to push you one way or another, but it's still kind of at your back, pushing you here, pushing you there. You don't got to accept all this craziness going on. The rent's going crazy and all that stuff. All those things, if you linger on them, you will close the door on your dreams. Because you're like, I got to focus on survival. You never thrive. Because the only way anybody who's ever really went out and thrived is because, they took care of survival at some point. You got to let go of that survival mindset so you can finally, open up some doors and take some risks.
All joke aside, my 2 co-hosts are 2 accomplished people, man. I know we asked a lot of questions about you guys. I would love if the guys can take Jeremy and Matt. Take a second, tell Karen and Jeremy who y'all really are, because there's a project that I think Kara's going to need you for voiceover. So I'm always plugging in people, you know what I mean? So please, Matt, start
my new reality TV show?
Yeah, so you need him. You need... So I just got you another job, man. So thank you, know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to work.
Thank you. So go ahead, Matt. Start up first, then Jeremy.
Well, Miss Kara, we've already worked together, so it's more for Jermaine. But as you can see behind me, if you couldn't tell, I'm a music guy, music producer, engineer. I've produced a few things for a few names you may have known. To my right, to Meek Mill plaque. To my left, to DJ Khaled plaque. So produced for a few people. I try and stay humble about it. A lot of my peers and counterparts, they really big-headed about it. I don't really hang out with those guys too much, but I just like to stay in my lane, do what I like to do, stay humble and teach, and try and always give back to my community that gave so much to me.
So that's why I got you into the school with Kara. So I just gave your service away. So
listen, I will say that's one service you can freely give away because I love to teach.
Okay,
I love
then.
For me, it's
good.
satisfaction for me. So,
Jeremy. Tell them who you are, because I already got your job.
I'm just a journalist. Just a journalist. I've been a journalist for 25 years. I work in sports. I've done everything: news, weather, sports, radio, TV, internet. I've done it all. I've shot. I've edited. I've done podcasts now. Yes, and yeah. I mean, I'm more than happy to lend my talent to whoever needs it, and that's one of the things that I'd like to use it I'm trying to build it as a business. Because
that's when you talk to cares
because
everything about his business.
Because I as I've said to Victor, it's a face for radio. So, but I have a good voice. But I've got a voice for radio, so I want to be able to use that for use my powers for good. I was saying this to somebody the other day. They were saying, you're not a journalist, you're a storyteller, because I tell stories. Mm-hmm. You're a storyteller. And that your gift is that people enjoy listening to you tell stories. So I said, okay, yeah, that's my gift. That's the gift I was given. I was given the gift of being able to, to have a nice voice. Well, my parents helped with that, but to have a voice that is listenable. And I'm more than happy to help if you need something done or anything like that, or you need something read, you need an answering machine message, I'm more than happy
Answering message. Oh my God.
I've done some stuff for Vic, and I've done some other stuff too. So more than happy to help out if you guys ever need it. And I want to take a moment to just also promote April 27th, Kara's Pinterest webinar about farming and becoming a farmer. If you're interested in it, then that is something that you should be looking at getting in on, because it sounds like it's going to be fantastic, Kara. That's awesome that you're able to do something like that.
And Jermaine, please give out your information, because I know a lot of youth out here who really want to get into technology, and you're such a great businessman, and you got something to people can see. So please, if the next generation want to reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm Germain BB. You can pretty much find me on LinkedIn for the most part. I do answer my messages and everybody else on there. You got the communications company, which is Victories Communications, Victories.com. You check us up there. Not ready with any platforms yet for our own space, but that'll be coming in the next month or two. I'll probably be back on here and update you on some of that stuff.
Yes, you got to. Kara, please give your information when he's done.
Yes, you can find us at blackfarmers.org. The deadline for our scholarship, we have 10 of those to University of Nebraska-Lincoln, is May 15th. You have to have a 3.0 GPA and a current graduating high school senior. But if there's anything I can do to help anyone, start a farm operation, or, just some advice, be glad to reach out. My email address is nbfa, Nancy Bravo Frank Apple, .kara, Kara, @gmail.com.
See, she got the alphabet, right? Yeah, she was there long enough to learn the alphabet.
I would have been singing.
She was there long enough to learn the alphabet.
I actually quit Head Start.
Jesus.
Yeah, so
you got me.
My sister would walk me to school, to pre-K, to kindergarten, pre-K, the Head Start program, the daycare, and she would leave to go to school. She was 5 years older than me, and I would cry. I would follow her, so they eventually just stopped making her take me. So I tell her.
So you quit milk and cookie.
Yeah, but they said I could put all the puzzles together there, and in elementary school I scored like 99% on the CAT test and different things, and most people don't even know that there's actually a specialized intelligence test. It's called the Benford-Lowry IQ test for Native Americans, and so these are things that.
Why is only Native American?
Well, see, because there's a difference in our vocabulary, and standardized testing was only developed with a certain set of students in mind. Yeah. So, like I said, the system that we use to kind of, sort and grade and, stamp people, really doesn't encompass us all. We don't all fit within that cookie cutter system.
Don't feel bad, because I was a terrible student too. I literally decided to go to.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that, because you've been saying all good things all the whole show, and I was waiting for him to say Jesus Christ. Took you damn hour something to say it.
I love my parents. I'll never say it, but they didn't think I was gonna amount to anything.
Wow!
Listen, I decided to go to college the last 2 weeks before. When I found out they had dorms, And I realized I could live there. That's what I decided. Me and my best friend walked into the counselor's office and said, "Hey, we want to go to college." She said, "Oh, fantastic! What schools you want to go to? What's your score? That scores for what?" She said, "She looked at your SATs or ACT." I'm like, "What's that?" She's like, "I'm like, what's the test?" This is Monday. Test was Saturday. So I had already missed the SAT, added to the ACT. That test was Saturday. I walked in with nothing. They handed me a pencil and a calculator that sat on there. But I did terrible in math. I did really, really well. I was always a great reader and interpreter. I did so well out there that I was able to, apply to some schools, got into a couple of schools on contingency. I had to take 2 remedial classes when I got to 4. I passed them, and that's how I ended up down here.
I feel good about myself today.
Yeah, hey, I was a C student. When I did my first year of my science degree, I was put on academic probation for a year, and then I managed to straighten up and fly right thanks to my dad. My dad said, "Yeah, no son of mine's flunking out of university, so get your shit together." And then went off to journalism school and became a journalist. And I, been lucky enough to do it for 25 years, something I love to do. But yeah, Jermaine, I'm in the same boat as you, man. My parents are probably shocked as ever. They're probably just like, Jesus, he's still doing it.
Hey, listen. Hey, Victor, tell them the difference between the Haitian parents and the white parents. Haitian parents don't believe in what degree?
Don't be the what degrees, yeah.
Engineer, you know what it took to convince my parents what the heck urban planning was?
They don't believe 2 things. Be a doctor or engineer. You're not a doctor engineer, you're a failure.
Nurse, architect. They thought I was going to school for architecture.
Yeah.
Journalism? My dad would have been like, what?
Urban planning? What is that? You're building Lego? What's happening?
No, the funny thing is when I told my mom, hey, I'm working with athletes. She said, damn, you ain't old enough to still be playing sports? I was like, no, I'm actually managing them. She said, where you going to live? What are you going to eat? I'm like, no, you can make money from, she's like, there's nothing. Came the one day she finally saw I came home with some money and was like, oh, where did you get that from? Yeah, Mom, the guys who run on the football field that you hate so much.
Yep.
Yeah, that's them. But one thing this podcast is teaching me, never give up on anybody, man.
Right.
It's not how you start, it's always how you finish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The person who all start fast, I had an old guy, excuse my language, he used to say, you run fast, you shit slow. That was my football coach. You run fast, you shit slow. I never understood it. I mean, if you take off on a 400 meter full speed, after the first 200 yards, you're going to be gasping for air. So he just always to say, man, you run fast, you shit slow. I was like, okay, I get it now. But I thank you guys, man. I got to have you guys back on. This is this show is very entertaining. And, of course, Kara, and I definitely need to get you with Jeremy because there's some things that Jeremy is doing which is going to help the National Black Farm Association. And, of course,
I want to learn more about those cargo spaces and the pods and everything and urban planning. I mean, there's just so much in community development.
I'm going to get with you and Victor in a little bit. I'm just not ready yet. But
I will. Yeah, well, we good because guess what? I got that 1,000 acres. We might could do something and sell it for $10 million.
Yeah.
And there's a grant. There's a grant we can apply for right now to get to do a project and include broadband a part of it too.
Okay, I'm ready.
Business deals happening
at the Big Victory podcast.
There's victories happening.
Yes.
If I leave this show, anything I want to tell people right now. Right now, I don't know. I wasn't here 50 years ago. There was the gold rush. We had a couple things happen, right? We had the gold rush. We had the .com boom. Most of us here are too young for any of that or just, didn't know. Right now, we're in the greatest era for wealth building you've ever seen. You got the government is throwing out money everywhere trying to make things work. You got Bitcoin. You got all these things that are on the ground right now. And so I encourage anybody that's listening to this, do something different this year. Don't just go to work and pay bills and die. I don't care if you got to take out $1 or $2 out of your pocket. You can buy a Bitcoin, buy something. Don't just go to work and die. Stop buying sneakers and Gucci or whatever it is and put something up because this is one of those eras right now that we're in. We don't know how long it's going to last, but people are streamlining to wealth. Last year, 5.2 million people became millionaires for the first time. Like, it is real out here. So if you got something, you got an idea, there are platforms that are coming online almost on a weekly basis that you can jump on, create something, create a book, do anything, and monetize it. It is unbelievable right now. And this is, I don't know how long it's going to last, but this is the time right now that we haven't, most of us in our generation right now, we've never got a chance to see it. This is the real gold rush coming back around again. Anybody who's out there, got access to internet, the people are trying to get internet for free right now. Get on something. Build a shirt, because the tools out there that I'm seeing just for you to work with, even for free, it's amazing. It's amazing. So don't, you can become a journalist now. Just get on YouTube, buy a mic.
You want to hear something funny? I woke up and said I'm doing a podcast. And well, guess what we're doing now? A podcast.
All the stuff he just went through to get to where he's at. You got kids right now that get on there, get some news articles. They go on their Facebook Live and Instagram Live and TikTok, and they're doing like segments, and they're monetizing their YouTube. So you got right now 16-year-olds and younger getting $100,000 a month.
Wow.
And it's crazy. So right now, man, it's a different world right now. And
I think be a new agent.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, guys, I want to tell you guys, thank you again for coming in. We definitely get you back on the show, and the information, like I tell people, it's not about just being an athlete or entertainer. It's about being a business, controlling the business of life. And you guys have brought that today, and I thank you. And Mav, keep showing them plaques and get more plaques. Jeremy, let that voice. Hey, you know what? And I'm gonna keep being me, man. I love you guys, and thank you for joining us in the Big Victory podcast.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bro. Hey, Carrie, you guys, let me know when you guys back in South Florida. Let's do lunch.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, guys.
Push hard, big body, bimmer. Y'all them love me one fin me like then a big bulldog. 4-4 air trigger. Any boy this will get him head top, lift up in the push hard, big body, bimmer. Y'all them love me one fin me like then a big bulldog. 4-4 air trigger. Any boy this will